I know the vast majority of us who sew like pockets. I may be the 1% who is not that enthusiastic, but I know 99% of you are. And I have a super special video today showing you how to sew inseam pockets with French seams. If you want your garments to be extra special on the outside and on the inside, this one is going to be super useful for you, so stay tuned. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today I have a technique for you that I had promised the other day. If you've been watching my videos, maybe you've seen that I've made a video about inseam pockets the other day, and I've mentioned over and over again that I'm not that much of a fan of inseam pockets at all, but because this is a sewing channel and it's not just about me, it's about you and what you like. Considering that 99% of seamstresses want to add pockets to their garments, I decided to make the video for you. Just because I opt out of them and don't sew them onto things doesn't mean that I don't know how to sew them. Of course I know how to sew them, and I've already shown you a nice detailed instructions with good practices to get you really nice looking pockets. Different scenarios, different types of fabrics. So you haven't seen that video, go ahead and watch it. It's from last week, and I promised there that I would show you how to sew this type of inseam pockets with French seams inside. Now, it's not the same. The technique I'm going to share with you will be quite different. I'm sure it's not what you're expecting, but it is the easiest way that I find, and that will give you such a neat result inside, where you can actually press the seam allowance to the back, not have any raw areas, no random clipping into seam allowances, things like that, and I'm sure you're going to like it. Let's see how to sew these inseam pockets with French seams.
Don't you think this is starting to wear?
What you have here are your two pocket pieces. You need to have one cut out from the main fabric and one cut out from lining fabric. They are supposed to be mirrored to each other, even though they are different fabrics. If I place them right sides together, you'll see I'll have the same shape. So that this is not so confusing, on my lining fabric that's black, I've marked a W for wrong, and this is the side that doesn't shine, the opaque side. And then on the right side that's shiny, I've put an R there. With the print, you can tell for sure which one is which. I'll just let you know what I did here. When I was cutting my pocket pieces, there were these little snips here on the fabric from cutting out another piece, and I did not have any more fabric to cut another one just like this, so I just patched it up with interfacing. Just pretend that that's not there, but that's why that's there. So we'll put these aside. This is a side seam of the skirt that I'm sewing. You can see that I've fused the strip of interfacing all along the edge that will have the pocket. I decided to fuse all the length that the pocket will have. If I put a pocket piece right next to that, you can see it's the same length. It's just easier that way. I've marked the B with chalk. It's hard to see. I'll also mark it with a friction pen so that I can always see which one's the back, which one's the front, so it's less confusing. On the other side here, I have the front. I'll also put an F right there. And on the front piece is that I've marked my pocket entrance lines. You can see a notch right there and a notch right there. Anything you're sewing with pockets will usually have two marks right there. If it doesn't have a mark up above, just choose a space there. Look, my waist is pretty high. I don't want my pocket entrance to start close to my waist, so that's why my pocket entrance is about 3 inches lower than that. Then I have my 6-inch entrance and then an inch after that. So that's how I made my pockets. So let's just open this up. Have the front piece right here. Remember, I've marked an F there. This is the front, and this is where I'm going to sew my contrast piece, and I'm going to put them right sides together like that. I'm going to be sewing from the side of the skirt where it's interfaced and where I have my marks. I'm just going to align all the raw edges here with some pins. And now this is where it's gonna get a little different than the other pockets you're used to sewing, but I think it just turns out so much neater, nicer. And at the end, you can press your seam allowance to the back without a problem with this method that I'm going to show you here. Within these two lines, I'm going to sew a rectangle. So I'm going to start there, sew that seam allowance 3/8 pivot and sew along there, pivot again there, and then go up, and I'll have a little rectangle that uses the 3/8 seam allowance that this pattern has. Make sure this little seam is very straight. I'm going to reduce my stitch length to 2.2 for this. This pivot has to be exactly at 3/8 of an inch, so let me confirm. Yep, I can confirm on the metal plate there. Make sure you pivot at the exact same seam allowance you're using, whether it be a 3/8, half an inch, and then keep going. Right there, I'll pivot and sew across here. Very straight as you can. Okay, maybe you can't see the rectangle I've sewn because I have the black interfacing, but maybe you can see it on this other side. Maybe the light will catch the black thread. You can see the rectangle right there. So now I'm just going to snip into this corner like this from the inside of the rectangle. Right there. And same as on this side here. Right there. Okay, there's that seam. That's where I snipped into the corner. Now I'm just going to extend this pocket out like this. Keep the seam allowance underneath the pocket here. And from under where I snipped right there, I'm going to understitch there up to the other side, just up to where I snipped. So you're going to have a little piece left over there. Just understitch within that area. That just means I'm sewing on the lining piece, keeping the seam allowance right under it. That's where I'd snip there. I'll stop right above. Now we're going to go to the iron and press this properly. What this little snip allows, and that little horizontal seam, is for you to have this happen. You're going to have like a little corner. So this is the bottom of the pocket here, and now I'm just pressing this. You can see that little shape forming right there. And on the top it will be the same. Just fiddle with that seam and you're going to have a little corner there. See, it's like going in, a really clean pocket opening like that has been understitched, and then this top edge is raw, and then from here on it's raw. This is how it looks like on the wrong side. You can see the corners folded, understitching, and you have raw edges there and raw edges there. I'm going to take my other pocket, the one that has the print. If I just place this on top like this and follow the shape, I'm going to have right sides together, and that's not what we want. We want wrong sides together to do French seams. So I'm just going to flip the pocket this way. You have the wrong there, and then put this pocket on top, wrong sides together like that. And now I'm going to align them here on the bottom, pin all this, and this is what is going to get sewn first with 1/8 of an inch. And that's just because I'm using 3/8 seam allowance. 1/8, and then at the second go you do a 1/4, it'll give you 3/8. If you have 1/2 inch seam allowance, it's ideal because you sew 1/4 inch and then you flip and then you sew again with 1/4, but you can do it with 3/8. So I'll just sew this carefully with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I will just show you again what I've done if you got confused. I've sewn my lining to the front skirt piece right there. I've sewn that little rectangle, I've understitched in there, I've pressed it. I've got this little shape there. I'm going to extend this pocket out like this. So I have wrong sides up of the skirt and the pocket. And this is where I'm going to take my pocket and put it wrong sides together with this one, following the shape. And I'll be sewing these wrong sides together at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, there is the pocket pinned wrong sides together. At the bottom, I do have space to manipulate, you know, because there's 1 inch right there that's free. And at the top, everything's free. So let's just go ahead and sew. I have this right underneath where I sew, and right there it says 1/8 of an inch right there. So I can actually place my fabric along that line while I sew. That line there says 1/8 of an inch, and that's where I'm keeping the edge of the fabric. It is very possible to sew with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we have the first seam at 1/8 of an inch with the fabrics wrong sides together. Now we're going to flip the pocket all along this curve and sew it again. Right sides together now. You can see the shiny lining with the print, right sides together. Now some people like to go to the iron, but I just have a better result rolling this with my fingers. So I just roll this, make sure the seams are right on the edge, and I just put a lot of pins sort of right on the edge there. I've changed my presser foot to 1/4 of an inch foot. Now we have our pocket bag all sewn with French seams. It's very beautiful. And now all we need to do is sew the side seam, but I'm going to go to the iron and press this nice and neatly first. This is how the pocket bag looks after being pressed. It looks so pretty. Look at it. And then on the other side you have it like that. There's no raw edges, nothing like that. And on the inside, super neat as well. Align your pocket pieces on the top there. Maybe put a pin will help you. And then put the pocket behind your front seam. You can see that your front skirt piece has all the pocket there right next to it, and you have this main piece pocket here behind this little rectangle. It will make sense in a second, I promise. So let's just pin that there for now so it doesn't go anywhere. Pin all the layers there, and here you have the bottom part of the pocket like this right there. So your front skirt piece will include all this pocket business right here. This is how it looks on the other side, pinned on everywhere, and you already have a pocket entrance right there, but you still have seam allowance here on the side from behind that pocket entrance there. Pocket entrance is neat, it's understitched. Now all you need to do is get the back part of the skirt and put it on top. So this is how it would be sewn if you were not doing French seams, but we are doing French seams. So we're going to put them wrong sides together. So this is what we have here, the front piece of the skirt that has the pocket, and we have the side seam from the back skirt, and we are going to align them wrong sides together. You can see there. So what you have essentially here is the front skirt with the pocket already there, and then the back skirt behind it. Align it right here where all these pocket pieces meet, and then all the way down the skirt. Basically what we have here is just side seams pinned together, wrong sides together. The pocket opening is separate there. We have seam allowance behind it, as you can see, so we're not touching this layer from the front. And I'm going to sew the first seam at 1/8 of an inch, the same as I did with the pockets. You can see here that the front part of the skirt already has the pocket there and the pocket opening right here. So in this section, we're just sewing the pocket bag that's made of the main fabric and the back skirt there, wrong sides together. Because this is a straight seam, I will go to the iron and press it to help me fold it again neatly. And that's something that you didn't see me do on the pocket because this is so curved. I think it would have been annoying to go and try and press it. That's why I just manipulated it with my fingers. But for this straight seam, I will actually go to the iron and just neaten it up before folding it again. Okay, so I've pressed that little seam, and now I'm just going to fold this again, right sides together, all along the side seam, like this. This is the back that I've got on the front here, and that's why you can see the whole edge has been interfaced, so it's nice and stable. Okay, everything's pinned. Now you can touch here where we have that bulk here from this other side, right there. Remember we had that little rectangle right there, that opening, so we want to sew right on the edge right there. And I can touch it, I can feel where that little corner is, and I'm just going to put a pin there to remind myself to sew right there. And then further down it's the same. Here it is, the little rectangle that we have inside from the pocket opening on the front skirt. The bulk is right there, so I just want to sew right there. And it will just be one seam that will finish this, and then we're going to have this like that on the side seam, pocket opening there and down here as well, sewn right on the edge, and then we can just press the seam allowance to the back. So second pass at 1/4 of an inch now. That's the place where I really want to sew right on the edge there, and I have that pin. I'm going to try and sew right where that pin is. Over here, you can touch the pocket opening from the other side, so you're not catching it. You can feel the bulk. Let me show you. Pull the skirt out of the way. This is what we're not trying to catch, but you can feel it. You know you're not sewing it because it's moved to the side here. Where I have that pin is the bottom of that pocket opening, where I also want to sew right where I have that pin. French seam has been pressed to the back. The interfacing there is hidden right there. I have those two little black spots, but just ignore them, they're not there. Everything's really neat. The lining fabric is the one touching the skirt. That's why I like using slippery fabric here, so that it slides on the fabric and it doesn't get stuck to it. There's nothing raw, nothing snipped. Everything is perfectly clean inside. And then on the right side, we have the front over here, the back there, the seam is right there. And just from there, we have a little opening perfect main fabric here that you can see when you put your hand, and lining fabric here on the front piece that's understitched. Great way to do an inseam pocket with French seams, very clean. I hope this was super helpful for you. I'll leave you a link of a playlist where I've collated a lot of videos I've made about pockets, all types of pockets, because I know you like them and I do make videos about them. I just hadn't made one about inseam pockets. And now with this video, you can sew them with French seams if you want to take your garments up a notch, go the extra mile. And this dress has them like that. This is all I'm going to show you about my dress, and it's these inseam pockets that I've just sewn with the French seams. Very nice. You cannot tell that they're there. The seam is very hidden there. Inside it looks even better, but the best is that on the outside you can't see them, and that's what I want with pockets. They don't create bulk because the top of the pocket is anchored up to here, so that's really good. Love that. I have a little peek of a dress I'll show you in tomorrow's video, and this is a dress I used to sew my pockets onto, so you'll see this fabric a little bit while I'm sewing, but not that much. Have a look at this thick strap. This is a tempo dress that is going to be released tomorrow at Love Notions, and I'll have a separate video about that one tomorrow. So keep your eyes open. Just in a few hours, I'll have a video about that one. See you again very soon, and happy sewing. Bye.